Hey folks, welcome to another session in a series of sessions wherein we talk about how to grow from a junior developer to a senior developer and double your salary. Today we are going to do an open source project walkthrough. So this is the project that I have picked for you. This is called uh, Shave. Let me open the URL. Let me share the URL in the chart as well. You can check it out at jeffrey.in/shave. This is, as it says, it's a modern JavaScript plugin for truncating text within an HTML element. We're going to see how this works. So as we see, it says it's a zero dependency JavaScript plugin that truncates multi-line text to fit within an HTML element based on a set max height. It then stores the difference of the original text in a hidden element following the visible text. This means the original text remains intact. Here is a demo. So you can see actually it's the same text as above. And as soon as you click on truncate text, you see that you are only able to see a couple of lines and then you see an ellipsis dot 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 at the end. Uh, can you see this? If you click on reset, uh, it goes back. So basically, if you click and reset and it goes back, that means the original text is still kept intact. I've shared the URL in the chat. Just check it out, test it out, and see if it is working correctly on your side as well. And if you're able to understand what the plugin is doing, if everything looks clear, give me a yes in the chat. And then it talks about how it compares to other truncation plugins. It maintains the original text, does not require anything else, and hence it claims itself as a zero dependency plugin, only requires a selector and max height, lightweight, etc. etc. A bunch of things. This is how you install it, this is how you use it. And let's get into the code of it. So examples here at the bottom left, you can see here is the code for it. So we're going to see how an open source project looks like, what are the different components and the structure of it. So you can also like clone it and see it alongside, or I'll just share my screen. Let me just clone it and share my uh, IDE. Yeah, let me just stop sharing this. Share this. All right, perfect. So as you can see, uh, you must be seeing my uh, browser, not browser, my code IDE. Here's the README file. Let me just zoom in a bit. Is this zoom setting enough? Should I do more? Should I do less? Just let me know in the chat, and then we're going to uh, go through it. And at any point in time, if you have any doubts, just feel free to put it in the chat itself at that point itself. And based on how many people are having the doubt and based on the level of the question, I'll try to maybe answer either at that point itself or towards the end, so I can take that call. So but for you, don't wait for doubts to come. Just put it uh, just put it as and when you get in the chat itself. And yeah, I've just set the settings so that it comes directly to me, so you don't need to sort of even if your question seems small to you, that's totally fine. Like I told you, I've set the setting so that it only can be seen by me. So it's totally okay if you feel it's a small doubt. Jitna bhi small ho, just ask. All right, so let's start with the first thing itself. All right, so at the top you see a dot circle CI folder. Um, all the folders with dot will sort of come up at the top because it's sorted by your ASCII order. So you see the dot folder. Typically the dot folders are hidden on your system, so unless If you're just browsing in a file explorer, you won't see the dot folders by default. But yeah, if you're using an IDE, you'll see them. And here we see a config.yml file. So Circle CI is a platform that allows you to run your test cases before or like after every code commit. And this is how it looks like. So um, I'll try to give you an overview of most of the things here. And so I'll skip to the things that you need to understand, like just enough knowledge that you need to understand to start using them. And if you have already used them, that's great. You can ask further doubts in the chat. So what it what it says is, this is the working directory. Use a Docker image to set up the testing environment. Just set the config log level to error. That means only if it is an error, then only you log something. And the comment also says here, make npm commands less noisy. Don't don't put out informational log messages, only put out error log messages. Version, jobs, and here you see the actual workflow. This is what you can sort of like go to any project and see what it is actually doing. So it starts with the checkout. So do you copy the code to your Docker machine, run npm install, which is you install this library, this plugin, and then you run ESLint CI. So we'll see what this is. Then you run build, and then you run test. So this is sort of the flow. And where will you find these run commands? You'll find them in the package.json file. So you'll find the scripts here. So your build is just building it. Let's come to the ESLint :ci, right? So those, let me just open in this in your new tab so that open to the side maybe. Yeah. All right. Let me close this. Let me put it here. All right. So you'll see that this runs ESLint :ci, which is different from your normal ESLint command. And what is the difference? In the normal command, you're also passing a flag to fix the errors. So when you are passing the flag to fix the errors, it will also change your files. This is something you'll run it on your local machine. When you're testing it out, you don't want to change the files. And hence, you'll run a modified version of that wherein you're just checking if there is any linting error present or not. Then you're building it and then you're testing it. Let's see the test script. Test, what you're doing, we're doing npm run test acceptance and npm run test es check. We'll see what it is. Let me close it because test is the last command. Let me close this. And again, you might be seeing कि अरे यहाँ तो मतलब 10-15 scripts हैं. And the reason why I'm like, telling you this workflow is so that you can go to any open source project that you like and then start making sense of it. That's the takeaway that I want you to have after completion of this session. So at the end, we ran npm run test. It is running two commands, test acceptance and test es check. So test acceptance is running node scripts acceptance.js. We'll see where it is and what does it do. And then it is checking, uh, the test es check is checking your eslinting on a bunch of files. And you'll see that these files are under the dist folder. Dist is a short form for distribution. So this is like a common terminology in like when we code a production ready app. SRC may you'll have your source files, and after building those files, the final version that will be deployed or will be used by the end users will go in the dist folder. And these are the ones, they are automatically generated. We never edit it directly. We only edit the source files directly, and then from the source files we generate the dist files, which are eventually distributed to to the end user. And you'll see that there are some variations as well. So you'll see there is a shave.js, a shave.min.js. A min.js file, let's just open and see it as well. This is your main file wherein you can read everything what how it is working. We'll go through this line by line as well, uh, maybe after a few minutes. But the same file, when you click on .min.js file, you'll see that this is sort of unreadable. As in, it's readable, but it's very hard to make sense of this. And why is this the case? Because it's minified. So min stands for minified. This is usually how scripts are distributed. So .min files usually take up lesser space than your normal files, and it's harder to read as well. But yeah, as long as it is just being used as a plugin to be used by someone else, they don't really care what's going inside the code. As long as the API or the function definitions, the contracts are clear, you don't really care how it's implemented. So you'll typically be using .min files. Okay, ये थोड़ा rabbit hole हो गया. Let's come back to the main thing. ES check we're doing on the dist files, which would be generated when you're doing the build command. Coming to test acceptance. So in test acceptance, you can of course do a bunch of commands. Here what it's doing is it's running a script slash acceptance JS. Let's go there. Let's see where it is. It's here, scripts slash acceptance. And what it is doing, it's just running the file test slash index.html. So see, like you'll at the uh, like if we just go and see, just browse the code, you'll see that array there are like tens of folders, tens of files, and how do you make sense of it? But if you go from a logical thing step by step, you'll see that it's mostly like the code is very less. It's just structured in a way that it feels very big. Like the code is like we'll see at the end as well. Actually, we saw a, a sneak peek as well. The code you see is less than 100 lines of code, but it's just packaged in a way that it might feel overwhelming at the start. So let's go to test slash index.html. They you have a file wherein you're importing jQuery and you're importing the file from dist, which is basically your final file. You're sort of using that and seeing how it works. And then you're also importing test.js. This is where your testing logic, uh, basically, this is where you're writing your testing logic. So we see that there is a test text. There's a lot of text in this, right? Like बहुत ही ज़्यादा infinite text लग रहा है मेरे को तो. बहुत सारे random characters, not random but like feels like Japanese or Chinese. Does anyone know, can anyone say whether it is Chinese character or Japanese character? Let me know in the chat. It's one of those, I'm not sure which one. And a bunch of text. All right, cool. And here is where your tests start. Run the library, run the plugin on a paragraph with a class, then just assert whether it ran successfully. And then you have a bunch of variations of these tests. This is sort of a very good documentation of how it works. So even your README might go out of date. Your README might just someone might have changed the code, but forgot to change something in the README. But whenever you are reading the tests file, this gives you a very up to date representation of what or how it's meant to be used and what it does, because this is being run on every commit, right? As we saw in the Circle CI workflow. So CI the full form is continuous integration. All right, you see run shave iteration, run shave with non-spaced languages with jQuery, check jQuery chaining, similar max height with jQuery with a class, And then what we're also doing is run on the same text multiple times. You see, we are running it 10 times, and then we are uh, checking that the first the text after the first shave, and even after running it 10 more times, it's the same. Like it just gets truncated the first time, and it remains the same after any consecutive or any future iterations. This is called an idempotent uh, behavior. Idempotency, you might have heard of it maybe in your math classes, either in your high school or in college. Uh, have you heard about the term idempotent? I'll just type it in the chat. Just give me a yes or a no. Hey folks, sorry, my net connection went off. Can you just quickly tell me in the chat till where did you hear? Did we talk about idempotency? Yes. All right. So, quick question: how many of you know what idempotency is? You might have heard it in your math classes in high school or in your college. Someone says A equal to A, something like that. Uh, yeah, so hardly remember. All right, all right. So instead of A equal to A, it's more like uh, idempotency is that if you apply something multiple times, it it does not change. So let's say in this case you have applied the shave function one time, then in the future attempts if you try it again, there's no behavior, like it just stays the same. This is this is called an idempotent behavior. So for example, um, let's say what would be a good example? Let me think. You might have heard of identities, right? Additive identity is 0. Let me write it here. Additive identity is 0. Multiplicative identity is 1, which is you add 0 to something multiple times, it still remains the same. You multiply by 1 multiple times, it still remains the same. Um, let's say if our function is adding 1, right? Adding 1 is not idempotent. What I mean by that is, uh, let's say if we start with the number 10, we add 1, it becomes 11. If we add 1 again, then it becomes 12, and then it becomes 13, and so on. So this is not idempotent. Um, and why I'm focusing on idempotency is, in a real world environment, we always try to make our API or the function's behavior as idempotent as possible, such that in case the user, uh, the user by mistake applies it multiple times, there's no surprises. So, for example, uh, when you are clicking a button and then something starts loading, you'll see that many times, or most good websites will just disable the button clicking. Have you seen that? You click on a button, it starts loading, maybe it takes 1 or 2 seconds to load, but then that button is disabled on your first click. What that means is, if you like spam, if you just want to spam that and quickly press it 3 times, your second and third click won't even register. So that is called an idempotent behavior, and this is prevalent in the real world, like very very broadly. From mathematical perspective, like I was talking about, key adding one is not idempotent. The function, you might have heard of the function absolute value, right? The function I absolute value is idempotent. So for example, if you start with minus 10 as the number, you apply the absolute value function minus 10, so you get 10. Even if you apply it multiple times, it still remains the same. So that is an idempotent function. um, let's say let's say you are in a lift, right? You are on the third floor and you have to reach the eighth floor. Okay, total 10 floors हैं. You're on the third floor, you want to reach the eighth floor, and then you press the eighth floor ka button. Now when you press that, that button lights up, but any future presses is idempotent, right? You might have some lifts wherein uh, whether you double click it or long press it, then it might just reverse the behavior. But the normal behavior, which is just clicking it again or pressing that button again, it does not change anything. Like you'll still go to the eighth floor. So that is an uh, idempotent behavior. Okay, coming back to this. So yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that always try to see whether whatever APIs or functions you're writing, uh, if someone does it multiple times, like have you put a check on it, or have you designed it in a way wherein there's no surprises, like it just happens once and then uh, there are checks in place so that it it's handled if someone calls it again. Okay, coming back to that. So this is the check where we are testing that if you apply it multiple times, it still remains the same. So yeah, we have covered the tests, and we sort of also I think completed the npm test हमने कर लिया. Let's go to .github. .github issue template and pull request template.md. These are files which define the template or the initial text of any issue that someone opens uh, on your GitHub repo. These are good to have for an open source project. So, for example, uh, you can add other things as well which you want to get from from the end user. For example, you might want to say which browser are you using, right? Because this is important. Are you using Firefox or Chrome or I don't know, Safari or Edge? Is anyone using Edge? Uh, but yeah, like so you can add just other questions so that it becomes easier for you to debug. So yeah, once you commit this, anyone opens a new issue, they will have to fill this out, or they'll be prompted with these questions which they can fill out. Same with pull request. This is sort of the format which says that hey, any pull request must be fixing an issue. So create an issue first, and then maybe just add the number. Maybe fixes issue number 17, and what are the changes that you're adding. All right, dist we already talked about. This is the code that actually gets shipped to the end user. Scripts we just saw, it is testing. Source, yeah, this is the main thing. I think we'll come to a bit. Let's just see if there's anything else. And if you see something here which you want me to touch on, and which you feel are interesting lag raha hai, just type it in the chat and then we'll touch on, because you're almost at the halfway point. So yeah, in the interest of time, don't wait till the end to ask questions, because I feel we might not get time. Just ask right now itself. All right, so tests, uh, we covered. There's types. So using TypeScript here, we have defined this target, max height, and there are some options. So the options again we'll see when we're reading the source file. Target is the element wherein which we want to truncate. Max height again we know. Yeah, we will rc editor config. Uh, yeah, this is something which is good when you're collaborating. So if you have this file, it will use the settings that's mentioned there. Uh, like most people have their own settings. For example, which how do you want to treat the end of line character? What character set you want to use? Do you want to trim trailing white space or not? Like I really like trailing. No, I really like removing the trailing white spaces. Like if it is something like this, I hate it for some reason. Like it just I just want key, like there should not be any trailing white space. What is the indent size? Like indent is like this is 4 basically. This is 2. This is 8. So what kind of a indent do you want on your code? So things like that. This is for every file. This is JS specific, CSS specific, etc. So you can sort of put it here, and again, like good practice to follow whatever the project is following. Otherwise, it will create inconsistency. So if this file is there, it will automatically use that. ESLint ignore. So basically, we're ignoring the lint in the following folders. There are some rc.json, git ignore. These folders and files will not be committed to the GitHub repo. Like if you're committing node modules, then it will just take a lot of space. So it does not make sense. And we are anyway locking the versions itself. I think that file will also come later. npm ignore nvmrc change log. This is a good file. So you see that like this is what uh, is the history of the project. They started with a version 0.0.2, then 0.0.3. Dates are mentioned, compare links are mentioned. It would be better if you also add what this particular feature or the release does. But yeah, this is also good just to see the history. You see that on the same day itself, right? 2110, 2110, 2110, 2110, 2110. There were a lot of fixes done. So this versioning, this is known as a semantic versioning, wherein the the versioning looks like this: major version dot minor version dot patch version. So patches are your fixes. Um, these pretty much are like small changes. Uh, Minor versions are places or versions wherein you add some features or you edit something in a backward compatible way. And a major version change means that your previous functionality is broken. Now, if you're expecting the same functionality, you won't get it, or you will have to test it again. So typically patch versions are like you just always update them because it might just have your security fixes and all that. Minor versions are also safe because they mostly add functionalities, but you don't need to do them because they are not meant to uh, like they're not required. Like patch versions are required because it might just be a bug that might be there in your code base. Minor versions are not required. It is just that it's adding new features, new functionalities, maybe new options. Major version you'll always have to test before migrating or upgrading. All right. So you see that this 0.1.0, this was the first minor version here. Then 1.1, basically 1.1, you can just see that these were like just some bug fixes or small changes. You can also go and see how it evolved. Again, a very beautiful thing. uh, a lot of open source projects won't have this. They just, like many open source projects, just commit everything in one go. But it's always good to see how they started, and then how they slowly evolved. So you see that 0.1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, some work in progress WIP 1.7, 2.0, sorry, 0.2.0, then this, and finally we have the first major version, wherein version 1 means it's usable, you can start using it. Version 0, as long as major version is 0, that means it's still in beta, you're still testing it out. As soon as major version hits 1, it can be used by anyone. Like this is the standard convention. So 1.0.1 you can start using. If we see the timeline, it started on 2016 October, and the first version was there in 2016 December. Wow, like almost 2 months, right? Like you might just think that, array, if it was just a small project, like why did it take so much time? But again, like it takes time, right? It just took 2 months for this. 1.0.0, then 1.0.1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have a major version upgrade next year. Then 3, 4, 1.2, 1.7, 2.2, 2.3, 5, 6. Okay, so we are on the second major version. All right, then there's a code of conduct. Uh, this is a standard code of conduct file, which basically is there so that any contributor that wants to add or contribute to this code base, they are sort of taking this pledge. So this is to maintain or create a safe space for everyone to contribute. Like we don't want like anyone is, if they are contributing, then they're sort of abiding by these guidelines. You don't uh, in this case, basically you're inclusive to everyone, so that you're using good language, you're respectful. It's not like uh, you created a issue or a pull request and you are being rude, so like that is not allowed here, right? You have to be respectful. So, like, as long as these guidelines are there, and if you don't follow, then anyone can just close your pull request ki, hey, you're not abiding by this. So, like, use examples be there, okay? Like, I think this is very good, right? Because it does not just leave something open ended. It also talks about key trolling is not allowed, harassment is not allowed, and a bunch of other things. So you can go through it. This is typically a template which you can just add to your code base. Code owners, who owns the code. License, I also got a comment that, hey, talk about license. So there are a bunch of licenses. Uh, your There are some licenses which allow everyone to use it. So MIT is one such license wherein anybody can use it, uh, and there's no limitation. It is it is like by default, if you don't put any license, um, you're not allowing anyone to use it. Like that is by default. So, which basically goes against the open source thesis. So in the spirit of open source, most likely if you're putting something out there, you would want everyone can use it. So MIT license is a very good beginner license to use. Like all, if you go to my GitHub and see my projects, you'll see that almost all of them would be using the MIT license. So that is uh, that is something that okay. I see a comment. Voice is breaking. Can you hear me better now? Give me, like, tell me if my voice is clear now, yes or no. Hello, hello. Voice is clear. Still breaking. Okay, maybe it might be at your end. Like, okay, it was breaking, but fine now, better now. All right, perfect, perfect. All right, अभी ठीक है. ठीक है. So coming to license, if you are confused, just use MIT license for your projects. That is like, uh, you're basically allowing everyone to use it, as long as uh, this notice is included in all copies. So you still will get attributed that, hey, uh, someone used this code, but this copyright notice will be included, which says copyright year and your name. A more uh, open license is the GNU GPL license. Um, and I think Apache license is also very permissive. Like, they don't, like, anyone can modify a code and release a version. Anything they can use, modify, distribute, sell, whatever. Um, so yeah, okay. I think we'll not go deep into that, because most likely you'll not get a use case for this. For now, just use MIT license for all your projects. And here we have your package.json. You'll see all the scripts here. We have keywords. Okay, voice is breaking. Oh man, let me change my network. Okay, I have changed my network. Is this better now? Is my voice better now? Yes. All right. All right. All right. So someone asked, what is the major difference between GNU and MIT license? So MIT is very permissive. It basically says that your software, your code can be used in any way. The GPL license is restrictive in one way, which is, it says that any changes that are made to the code, they should also be released under the same GPL license. That is, uh, if you change something, that still has to go outside as GPL again. So you basically, what you're saying is, your code will always be open source, versus MIT may you can just uh, like change anything and then take it closed source as well. Basically, it does not restrict you to do anything, as long as the copyright and the disclaimer of the original one is kept intact. What does GPL mean? GPL means General Public License. All right. Okay. I'll just maybe drop a uh, link as well, where which you can use. Let me quickly find it. I think somehow my net is working slow. I think if you just search on Google open source licenses, you will find the uh, we'll find the differences. Okay, yeah, I got it. So the website is called tldrlegal.com. I am just sharing it in the chat. Can you hear me now? tldrlegal.com. And if you just click on uh, any website, let me just open, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? tldrlegal.com. All right. So you can see Apache MIT. So if you just click on MIT, you will see short permissive license. You can do whatever you want as long as you include the original copyright in any copy. And uh, like full text is a bit big. It's in thoda legal language, but summary ye hai. You can do anything. You can do commercial use, which is you can modify and then sell it, or like basically make money out of it. Modify, distribute, sub license, private use. Uh, Good thing is you cannot be held liable uh, if your code does any damages. So this is a very good thing, which is the software owner uh, cannot be held liable for any damages. So good for the owner. But the only thing is just include the copyright, include the license in the modified software, which is like a easy thing to do. And then there are a bunch of other things. You can read it on your own. Let's go back to the code. Uh, 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 okay, cool. So we came to package.json. Okay, I think license a question someone had asked, and that's why we went into it. So we've covered that. README, renovate, this is the roll up, config, this TypeScript config, and then this yarn lock. This is an auto-generated file. The lock file is basically, you're putting the versions or locking the versions of all your node dependencies. Finally, let's come to the main code of the library of the plugin. This is the entire code, like you see, 70 lines. This is the entire code. Let's go through it from the top. And again, if you get any doubt anywhere, just ask anytime. Let me do a wrap. Let me do a code. Wrap, word wrap. Okay. So if type of max site is undefined or is not a number, we're throwing an error. Basically, this is sanity check. If the input variables are not passed incorrectly, you're throwing an error, you're returning that. Then you have what is the character you want to use. And you remember we had the third parameters as optional or the options parameter. So that was like a JSON with a bunch of config values. It was an optional thing. You can see here where it was in the types folder. Yeah. So options question mark. So question mark means it's option. It's optional, and it's a type of shape dot options. And what are options? Uh, what you want to put the class name, the character, or spaces. Let's go back here. No, we're going to dist source. Yeah. So if it is present, then you use that. If it is not present, you default to your ellipses, three dots. So pretty much you can also override this. You can pass an emoji or whatever you want. You can do that. Class name, which you want to use, spaces, char HTML. This is just like uh, normal handling, length, and here is where we start processing it, taking the style, taking uh, the class name which was sent. We are selecting that element. If it is not defined, we are taking inner text or text content. Again, these are HTML ways to figure out the uh, like get the text in a particular element, handle different types of elements. And here is your idempotency logic, which is if the element text has already been shaped, if span, uh, And see, we have to write the comment here because this if condition uh, is not really telling us what it is doing. Like you have to know a lot of stuff to understand. So this sort of comment is really helpful here. If you remember the last clean code session, uh, this is sort of required here. Like, of course, you can have a better name for this variable, but again, this logic is sort of not really understandable. So we have a comment here. If element text has already been saved, we remove the ellipsis, recapture the original text, and then we recombine it. So we are handling that here. If you see, we have like reached more than one third of the code, and there's no real like the logic has not come yet. Like the overall things that we're doing is just the options handling and like boilerplate things. The logic has not come yet. That is what I want you to focus on. Full text, spaces, then you're splitting, zero or one words, we are done. Again, these are like edge case handling. Temporary move CSS height for text height calculation. Again, this is this. If we are already short enough, we are done. So the max height was a parameter that was sent from from the function calling itself. And finally, here is where the logic of the entire plugin comes in. And just by reading the comment, you can see that what we're doing is we're doing a binary search for the number of words which can fit in the allotted height. We can do like a linear search as well. Binary search would just be more efficient. This is one of the cases wherein like going through this, like we'll go through that as well, but going through this, it will help you understand or appreciate how algorithms are used in your day-to-day life. Um, like I'm pretty sure that you would not have thought of कि binary search यहाँ पे use हो सकता है. And when the first time that I went through this code base, I also did not think of it. I was like, okay, we'll see how it is done. But this is how like this is a very nice example of algorithms in daily life. Let's go through it. For people who have not gone through binary search anytime, I'll just give a quick example. So remember in your childhood, you would have a dictionary, Oxford ka dictionary, and any new word that you uh, came across, you'd find it in the dictionary. You will not go through the dictionary page by page. You'll open a random page. You'll see whether the word that you're looking for is like comes before the words on the page or after the words on the page, and then depending on which side it lies on, you would open the next page in that particular section. Like this was how usually you would look for a word. You would not, if the dictionary is 1,000 pages, you will not look for 1,000 pages. You'll just quickly, in 5 to 10 tries, you will quickly get to that word. So that is the binary search in action. Here how we are using it is we are checking based on number of words. So we have the minimum as 0, the maximum as uh, the total number of words that we have. And what we're doing is we're doing a binary search. We are, so pivot is your middle point. The naming could be better, yes. Uh, Min plus max plus 1. This shift, right shift to 1. This means division by 2. So what you can think of this line, just to understand it is basically the midpoint of minimum and max. So let's say your total words were 1,000 and your minimum is 0. So what you're seeing is your mid number of words is 500. And in the next couple of lines, you're checking whether 500 words get fit in the allotted height that was given to us in the function calling, right? If 500 words are fitting, then we don't need to try 1 to 499, right? It's the same dictionary thing. अगर 500 हो रहे हैं फिट तो फिर 499 तो फिट होगा ही होगा. तो वो वाला पार्ट वी कैन डिस्कार्ड एंड देन विल search the new space of 500 to 1,000. And the same goes the other way around. If 500 words is not fitting in the height, then 501 to fit nahi hoga. So then we just working with 0 to 499. So this is what we are doing. We are like slicing, joining again, like these are uh, just sort of putting the words and then seeing in the element whether that height is greater than max height or not. Like basically, if it is greater, that means वो fit नहीं हुआ. So let's say max height was, let's say 100 pixels, and the offset height came to 120 pixels. That means ज़्यादा हो गया, नहीं fit हुआ. Then we are reducing the max to less than mid. So 0 to 499 में हम search करेंगे. Else we are yeah man, my net is really bad today. Okay. Um, till where did you hear? Which line did you hear? Can you just quickly tell me in the chat? Did you hear about the offset height example? Yes, no? 500 to 501. All right, all right. Cool. So I was telling, what we're doing is we are inserting the words in the element, and then we are seeing, let's say if the max height was 100 pixels, and we are seeing that the height of the element where we inserted the words, it is coming out to be 120. Let's say if it is greater than the allowed height, then we know that ये तो fit नहीं हो रहा. Then we need to test for smaller word number of words. So we are reducing the max. So basically now we'll only look for 0 to 499. Pivot minus 1, like 500 भी fit नहीं हो रहा, 499 तक ही search करेंगे. Else अगर fit हो रहा है, then we will increase the limit. So min we are setting it to 500. Now we will look for 500 to 1000 because 500 to fit हो गया, and then again we are doing the same loop again and again till we converge on the number. This is the core logic of the plugin. Then you'll see whatever we have found, we are actually going and inserting it, and then we are just sort of the element which we are also adding some class names, display adjacent element. I think these are just uh, there so that we can restore if needed, and then yeah, just setting the height max height. So this is the, again, this is sort of like the boilerplate code. If you do if you have to manipulate the DOM, you will very easily figure out these stuff. But overall, in the overall plugin, in the whole 70 lines of plugin, this 5-10 lines is the core. And even in the overall, like you see folders and files in the overall project itself, again, this is the only thing that matters. Like just based on these 10 lines, this whole plugin is created, and I'll show the plugin again. So here is the plugin. Let me share it again. Here is the plugin. We have this text. We click on truncate text and it is truncated. Now it goes dot 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 and we can reset. This is the plugin. Uh, yeah, so this was the walkthrough. I just found that this was very interesting to share because, like I told you, when I went through it, I was like, "Arey, it feels very overwhelming." But when you dissect it, when you go deep down into it, it looks very approachable, and it feels like it gives you that confidence that hey, you can also write these kind of plugins and make these kind of projects in future. So yeah, any questions on this till now? Uh, we can take that. Otherwise, we will uh, end this session here. We'll take a 2-minute break, and then from 9 p.m. we'll start and an AMA session. So if you have any doubts or any queries regarding your uh, career growth or how to navigate your career or life in general, you can just stay back and we can discuss uh, anything you might have in your mind. Yeah, we'll wait for one more minute if you have any queries here. Okay, let's do this exercise. What was your one key takeaway? Like we talked about uh, a bunch of things. What was your one key takeaway? You can type one, two words, you can type one, two lines, you can type one, two paragraphs as well. But like we touched on a bunch of things. What was one key takeaway? What did you like about this project? Just quickly type it. Like you don't need to think a lot. Just type what did you like the most about it. Okay, I see some answers coming in. Okay, someone says licensing. Yeah, yeah. I think it's good to understand uh, how and what licenses do. Again, not really important if you're just starting out in your career, but if you have spent a couple of years, good to understand that, so that when you also use uh, any of the open source projects in your code, you also understand what you're using actually. Yeah, Sarthik says plugins are not always as big as they look like. Yeah, very true, very true. I think that is for sure. I think anything is not always as big as it looks like. Um, yeah, as long as you know how to look, where to look, things are easier than it seems on the first glance. License, when it says licensing, yes, one has to understand more about tests. I lack knowledge in that. Yeah, yeah. So again, a good homework for you would be just take this project itself, right? The thing is like if you just open your options कि अरे ये भी कर सकते हैं ये भी कर सकते हैं तो बहुत दिक्कत हो जाता है. Just pick this project itself, go through these tests, run them, understand how they work, what they are, and then slowly you do it for another project, and then that's how you learn, right? So understand more about tests, and this seems like a simple thing. Learned about change logs ka importance. Yeah, got to know. Ayush says got to know about licensing and Circle CI licensing. Few details I did not know about templates in GitHub. V1 is when the software is ready to ship. Correct. Idempotent heard the first time on this call and relate with our code. Idempotent is very important, man. So, for example, let's say let's say you are creating an a user on a, let's say, on a social media platform. You're creating a user, right? Now, if I send a request to your user sign up API, so and on the first time you'll create a user, right? But if I send that request again, you will not create a new user, right? You will just return me the user that has already been created. So all the creation endpoints, you always have to think about whether they are idempotent or not. So another example, let's talk about uh, let's talk about placing an order on Amazon. Let's say for whatever reason you clicked twice on place an order. So तुम्हें तो एक ही चाहिए था ना आइटम. ऐसा थोड़ी दो बार करोगे तो the order will be created two times. So again, those things you'll have to think about on how do you handle that. Uh, let's say what else? Again, let's say it's a splitwise app and you're adding an expense and you added something quickly two times. So that becomes a business decision whether you want to allow multiple things quickly, or do you want to maintain idempotency there? uh, because it is not really like ho sakta hai, like you could have two similar expenses coming in. So it depends on your business logic as well, but most of the times, at least in the sign up or any create uh, entity form, you would have a idempotent behavior most of the times. Cool. With that, we will end this session here. If you have any queries, just reply back to the email, and you can sort of discuss anything in this project. You can go through this project and also ask any doubts if you have. You can take a look, check out other projects as well. Again, usme, if you have any queries, feel free to uh, email me. Yeah, and with that, we will take a quick 2 minute break, and we'll go to the next session where we'll go into an AMA session. Cool, folks. Thanks for joining in, and see you around. Bye bye.